They call it the land of harmony, where bullet trains glide like time itself. Japan, the place the world sees as safe, polite, ordered. A country where lost wallets are returned untouched, where the streets are cleaner than hospital floors. But what if that image is only part of the truth? What if behind the flawless rituals, behind the temples, the trains, the cherry blossoms, are questions no one dares to ask? What if in the quiet corners of Tokyo's neon maze, a different Japan whispers? A Japan where you can rent a father, a best friend, even a fake baby, not for a prank, but for survival. Where entire villages stand frozen in time, not preserved, but abandoned, because no one told you that beneath the structure, the smiles, the precision, there's a different kind of story. One stitched together not by myths or tourism posters, but by the lives of real people who are quietly disappearing. So this is not a tour. This is a journey through the hidden sides of Japan today. Through 15 truths you were never meant to see. Not the Japan from postcards. The Japan that watches quietly. The Japan that endures silently. The Japan that sometimes forgets how to speak back. And once you've seen it, you'll never look at this country the same way again. You've seen the headlines. You've heard the stories. A nation decades ahead of its time, where robots serve coffee, toilets sing, and trains arrive at a second. Japan is often called the world's mirror of what civilization should look like. A living portrait of balance, of control, of grace. But the surface is smooth, because the tension runs deep. See, I didn't come here just for cherry blossoms. I didn't come to check off shrines or sip matcha in quiet gardens. I came to listen between the silence, to watch where most don't look, to ask the questions that never make the brochures. And what I found? It was something far more human. A quiet unraveling. A country holding itself together, perfectly, while some of its people quietly come undone. And once I saw them, I couldn't unsee them. Because hidden beneath Japan's perfection are questions that change the way I see modern life itself. Number one, ghost towns in the land of robots. In a country where trains hum through cities with perfect rhythm, there are places where the tracks no longer lead anywhere. Villages where the clocks still tick, but no one is watching. Across Japan, far from the neon glow and the 24-hour convenience, entire towns have fallen silent. Not because of war, not because of disaster, but because time simply moved on without them. In Yubari, buildings stand intact, but windows remain dark. Classrooms once filled with voices now echo with the creak of old floorboards. Grass pushes through abandoned sidewalks. Vending machines still stand, cold and humming, though no one passes by to press the buttons. Japan is often admired for its precision technology and aging population control. But what happens when progress overtakes population? When a school has one student and 4 teachers? Over 8 million houses sit vacant across the country. They call them akiya, empty homes. Beautiful, wooden, hand-built structures that now rot quietly, their rooftops heavy with fallen leaves. Some are sold for 1 yen. Others are simply given away. But still, they remain empty. In Nagoro, a village once home to hundreds, a woman began sewing life-size dolls to replace those who passed or moved away. Now the dolls outnumber the people. They sit in classrooms, at bus stops, on benches in silence, still, smiling, forever waiting. These are not ruins from a forgotten war. These are communities undone by time, by birth rates that fall too fast, by youth that never return. And yet, despite the silence, nothing feels dead. The grass still grows. The wind still moves through the trees, as if the land itself remembers when it was alive. The question isn't why they left. The question is, what remains when no one returns? What happens to a culture so rooted in memory when the people who carry the memory are gone? And if this is happening in the countryside, what happens when the silence begins to spread inward? Because number 2 isn't as far from the city as it should be. Number 2, the lonely city, Tokyo's silent epidemic. Tokyo moves like a living machine. Tens of millions flowing through subways, crossing intersections, shifting between floors of glass towers. A city stitched together with speed, order, and silence. But in the stillness between those footsteps lies something few ever notice. A kind of emptiness that fills the air more than the crowd. In the narrow rooms above convenience stores, behind doors with no nameplates, there are lives being lived without witness. In Japan, isolation has a name. Hikikomori, an entire population who have withdrawn from society completely. Not for days, not for months, but for years, sometimes decades. They do not go to school. They do not go to work. They do not leave their rooms. Food is left at the door. Trash is passed through it. And on the other side, silence. The government estimates over 1/2 million people live like this. But even that number is uncertain because no one sees them. Some left after bullying, some after job loss. Others simply slipped away. One unanswered message, one unopened letter at a time. And slowly they disappeared from life. In a country where shame is heavy and privacy is sacred, many families hide them. Neighbors never ask. No one knocks. One note found inside a hikikomori's room read only, "I didn't fail, I just stopped participating." But some disappear further still. There is another word, kodokushi. It means lonely death. Every year, thousands of people pass away alone in their homes. Their absence noticed only when bills go unpaid or when the scent escapes through the door. Cleanup crews enter with gloves and masks. They remove what is left with dignity. But sometimes the only record of that person's life is the outline their body left on the tatami mat. It happens in tower blocks. It happens in neighborhoods with glowing lanterns and blooming trees. It happens where the world least expects it. Because loneliness in Tokyo is not loud. It does not beg for attention. It simply exists quietly, invisibly. And if silence can swallow so many, what does it mean for a city this large to carry so much grief and show none of it? Some find refuge in their rooms. Others look for escape elsewhere, not inward, but towards something less real, yet more comforting. Because it isn't about being alone. It's about creating a world where the pain of being alone no longer matters. Number 3, escaping the real world, the rise of virtual lives. In the shadows of Tokyo's tallest towers, there are places where reality loosens its grip. Rooms lit not by windows, but by screens. Voices that reply on command. Eyes that blink, coded but convincing. Here, connection is designed, programmed into simulations of comfort, and for many it feels more real than anything outside. Japan, home to some of the world's most advanced technology, has quietly become the epicenter of virtual intimacy. Not just entertainment, a lifestyle, a retreat, sometimes a replacement. Host clubs offer affection for hire, smiles timed to the customer's arrival, laughter measured by the minute, champagne flows, compliments are exchanged, and loneliness retreats. Just far enough to make it worth the price. Repeat clients form attachments. Some spend their entire salaries just to be remembered by name. But for those who cannot afford company or choose not to seek it, there are avatars, digital girlfriends, AI companions, holographic wives. Hatsune Miku, a blue-haired virtual pop star with no physical form, has sold out stadiums. One man even held a wedding ceremony, marrying her likeness before hundreds of guests. His vows were sincere, his commitment lifelong. VR cafes offer an escape within an escape. Sliding on a headset means stepping into a space where pain cannot follow. Here, no one judges, no one leaves, no one dies. Anime culture is more than cartoons. It is a sanctuary built frame by frame. Entire identities are shaped through its stories, more relatable, some say, than their own. Merchandise becomes memorabilia, characters become companions, and the fantasy becomes an anchor. Yet beneath the surface of all this digital affection lies a quiet ache, a search for something that doesn't fade when the power is off. Because beyond the colors and the code, there is still a need to be seen, and that need sometimes outlives the person entirely. Some don't just want to be remembered. They want to continue. But what happens when even death no longer ends the story? Because what follows next uncovers a kind of farewell that refuses to stay buried. Number 4, the rent-a-family industry. There are streets in Japan where nothing seems out of place. Smiles come easily. Schedules hold tightly. Greetings follow a perfect script. But not every smile is free. And not every family is real. In the heart of Tokyo, an agency offers a service unlike any other. A daughter, a father, a husband, a friend. Any role, any relationship. Available by the hour. They arrive on time. They remember the right names. They bring gifts. They hold hands. They say the words that were missing, but none of it belongs to them. Across the country, a quiet industry has taken root. Actors train not to perform on a stage, but at the dinner table, to comfort the grieving, to complete a photo album, to help a child feel like their father never left. In a culture where shame is heavy and appearances carry weight, even the absence of a loved one can feel like failure. So rather than confess the truth, some hire fiction. A mother who lost her son rents someone to call her mom once a week. A divorced man pays for a wife and child to accompany him to family events. And one client, for 7 years, rented a daughter who came home after school, shared meals, and wished him good night. The moments are scripted, but the emotions often are not. Tears are real. Laughter fills the room. But when the contract ends, the story vanishes. It raises a question that grows harder the longer it lingers. When affection can be bought and love can be rehearsed, what makes a relationship real? And if family can be rented, what happens in the places where the goodbyes are final? Because some losses can't be filled, some absences are too deep, and some people don't look for substitutes. They simply stop looking altogether. That silence leads to a forest, where names are carved into bark, where phones keep ringing long after the hands that held them are still. Number 5, the suicide forest at the base of Mount Fuji, where clouds settle low and light filters gently through ancient trees, lies a forest, Aokigahara. To some, it's a sea of green. To others, it's a place where time holds its breath. The ground is uneven, rooted in volcanic stone, covered in thick moss and soft with fallen leaves. There is no wind here. The silence is different. It clings, it lingers. It's said that compasses spin in confusion, that birds rarely sing, but none of that is what draws people here. What draws them is something harder to name. A weight, a quietness they believe might finally match their own. Aokigahara has another name, one whispered, not printed, the suicide forest, and yet there are no gates, no signs warning of danger. Just a simple path, and eventually the ribbons, bright-colored tape tied to trees, left by those who were unsure, those who stepped in and weren't ready to vanish. Each ribbon a tether to the world they left behind. Some return, some don't. But this forest isn't feared by those who live near it. It isn't cursed, it isn't haunted. It's respected, maintained by people who do not turn away from pain. Locals walk its edges daily. Volunteers collect the belongings left behind. Notes, shoes, a scarf hanging from a branch, and scattered throughout, nailed gently to trees, are signs written with trembling hope. Your life is a precious gift from your parents. Talk to someone before you decide. Please, think again. Police patrols have increased. Awareness campaigns reach beyond the trail. Even the nearby parking lot plays cheerful music to soften the weight of silence. And yet, each year, footsteps still enter. Some quietly, some with hesitation, some with peace. The forest does not judge. It does not ask why. It only listens. In Japan, silence is seen as strength. But here in this forest, silence has a different face. It is grief. It is final. It is misunderstood. And the question lingers like mist in the trees. What pushes someone to walk into the woods and never want to leave? But grief doesn't always look like this. Sometimes it hides behind effort, behind excellence, behind eyes that never close, because perfection doesn't sleep, and the pressure doesn't come from isolation. It comes from expectation. Number 6, perfection is pressure. Japan's mental health crisis. In a country where everything appears to function with mechanical precision, where trains leave exactly on time, where the streets shine after rain, and the uniforms are never wrinkled. There's something far more fragile beneath the polished surface, the pursuit of perfection, not as a choice, but as a duty. In Japan, there's a word, gaiman. It means to endure, to persevere, to suffer in silence. It is one of the highest virtues, to stay composed through pain, to smile when overwhelmed, to carry the weight quietly without letting it show. From childhood, this expectation is sewn into the fabric of daily life. Children are taught not just to study, but to never fall behind. Teens prepare for high school entrance exams as if their entire future depends on it. University students rehearse for job interviews months in advance, practicing how to bow, how to sit, how to speak. Employees work until the lights are the last to go out, and every gesture, every breath, every silence is held together by pressure. A pressure that doesn't explode. It folds inward. In Japan, appearances are a kind of armor. Clothing is neat, voices are soft, but behind the clean lines and polite greetings, there's a silent crisis. Mental health struggles are rarely spoken of. To confess anxiety, depression, or fatigue can be seen not as honesty, but as weakness. To ask for help is sometimes viewed as shameful, not for the individual, but for the family. And so, the pain hides. It walks into offices. It smiles at colleagues. It stays quiet in public and weeps alone at home, until it can't anymore. Japan has one of the highest suicide rates among developed nations. Each year, thousands take their own lives. Among them, students, employees, even children. Some leave no note. Others leave just one line. If you're not perfect, you disappear. That line was found on a desk in a small apartment in Saitama. The room was clean. The calendar was marked. The shoes at the door were neatly placed, facing outward. Every element of Japanese society celebrates control. The perfect bento box, the precision of tea ceremony, the symmetrical rock gardens. But no one asks what it costs to maintain that control. No one sees the toll of being measured against perfection every single day. In recent years, quiet movements have begun. Some schools have replaced strict dress codes with open discussion sessions. Mental health days are being introduced in some workplaces. Counseling services once hidden behind frosted glass are now advertised in plain sight. But the shift is slow, the resistance, cultural, generational, deeply rooted. Yet even stone under constant pressure begins to crack, and now something unexpected is happening. The cracks are starting to show, and through them, something more human is pushing its way to the surface. Because the next generation is no longer content to suffer in silence. But the pressure doesn't begin with adulthood. It starts earlier, much earlier, in a nation that gave the world Pokemon, Mario, and Studio Ghibli. What happened to childhood? Number 7, school without childhood. Before the sun rises, the trains are already full. Tiny shoes step onto crowded platforms, uniforms pressed, backpacks heavy, eyes still searching for sleep. In Japan, childhood begins early, but it ends even earlier. The average school day is not where it ends, it's where it begins. After school, children rush not to the park, but to another school, cram school. Known locally as juku, these after-hours academies are designed not to teach, but to prepare for tests, for rankings, for competition that starts before they even understand what they're competing for. Some children attend 5 days a week, others every day. Weekends included, they memorize, they rehearse. They sit for mock exams that determine which mock exam they will take next. Even sleep is scheduled around what can be studied. Pressure trickles down like clockwork. If a child doesn't enter the right middle school, they won't qualify for the right high school. If they miss the right high school, they can't access the right university. And if they don't enter the right university, the job they want may no longer exist. But what gets lost in this timeline is time itself. Playgrounds sit empty after dusk. Slides collect rain. Jungle gyms rust at the edges. Swings move gently in the wind, but not under the weight of laughter. In classrooms, children bow in unison. They answer in unison. They are praised for uniformity and corrected when they step outside of it. Teachers are respected. Rules are followed. But few ask, what happens when the joy of learning is replaced with the fear of failing? In a 2017 survey, over half of Japanese teenagers reported frequent stress due to academic pressure. Some report stomach pain before school, others report exhaustion. But the word used most often is numbness. At age 6, students begin their first official year of schooling. But even before that, many attend structured programs to get ahead. Before they learn to wonder, they learn to worry. For a culture that created Pokemon, creatures of imagination and color. For a nation that gave the world Mario, Totoro, and the freedom of a fantasy world. Where did play go? There is still laughter, still friendship, still moments of escape, but they are brief, confined to a window between one schedule and the next. Sometimes that laughter is replaced with silence, and sometimes the silence continues long after the graduation cap has been removed. Because the same child who never played becomes the adult who never stops working. And the workplace has its own demands, its own rituals, its own silence. So what happens when a lifetime of pressure doesn't stop at the school gate, but follows through every door? Into adulthood? Number 8, the salaryman's silent struggle. The streets of Tokyo begin to pulse before the sun touches the skyline. A silent army in dark suits moves in unison, shoes clicking across platforms, eyes fixed on the floor. No eye contact, no conversation, only the rhythm of obligation. The salaryman. More than a job title, it's a national symbol. An identity forged in repetition, reinforced in ritual. He carries a briefcase, but it's not just paperwork inside. It's expectation and exhaustion. Each morning begins the same. A train packed tight enough to still breath, shoulder to shoulder with thousands of others wearing the same uniform. Black suit, white shirt, polished shoes, the smell of vending machine coffee and damp polyester. The sound of silence, except for the voice announcing the next stop. Always on time, always full. The office is a world of lines, on spreadsheets and hierarchies, across faces hiding fatigue. Meetings stretch long past meaning. Decisions wait for approvals that never come. Lunch is short or skipped. Dinner happens at a desk. And home? Home is a word that grows smaller with every passing week. By law, Japanese employees are entitled to paid vacation. But in reality, many never take it. The fear isn't losing money. It's being seen as disloyal. One study found that over 60% of Japanese workers felt guilty for taking time off. The unspoken rule: be the first to arrive and the last to leave, even if there's nothing left to do. At 11 p.m., fluorescent lights flicker in buildings that should be dark. Inside, a man types, not because the work is urgent, but because no one else is left. To leave first is to break the rhythm. To break rhythm is to break trust. Sleep becomes optional. Meals become brief. Health begins to erode quietly, under layers of dedication. And sometimes it ends without warning. There is a word in Japan, karoshi. It means death by overwork. A stroke at the keyboard, a heart attack on the train, a collapse on the sidewalk with a phone still in hand. In 2015, a young woman working for a top advertising firm logged over 100 hours of overtime in a single month. She posted on social media, "I want to die." Weeks later, she did. It shocked the country, but only briefly. The headlines faded. The schedules remained. Because within the corporate spine of Japan is a deeply held belief. Sacrifice builds character. Endurance is pride. And to serve the company is to serve one's purpose. Even those who break down often return. And those who survive do so quietly. No applause, no reward. Just the morning train again. And yet, he bows and does it again tomorrow. Not because he wants to, but because in a culture that values harmony above hardship, quitting feels like betrayal. But not everyone accepts this path, and not everyone stays in the shadows. Because in a society shaped by hierarchy, one group has always been expected to stay silent. Now they're beginning to speak. Number 9, women in the shadows. In a world built on precision and pride, where trains run on the second and school children bow in perfect rhythm, One thing often falls out of sight: half the population. In Japan, the role of women has long walked a tightrope between tradition and modernity, between image and reality, between being seen and being heard. Walk through Tokyo's tech districts, and the future hums in every direction. Robots greet shoppers, holograms sell cosmetics, vending machines offer 100 choices. But behind the counter, behind the boardroom, behind the glass, rarely stands a woman. Japan ranks among the lowest of all developed nations in gender equality. In politics, in corporate leadership, in pay. Despite holding degrees, credentials, and experience, many women find the door quietly closed the moment they step into marriage or motherhood. It's called the M curve, a term used to describe what happens to women in Japan's workforce. They begin their careers, they rise. Then, around marriage or childbirth, they vanish from the professional ladder. Not because they can't climb it, but because the ladder was never designed for them to stay. Some are told directly, this position requires full commitment. Others are simply reassigned, overlooked, or dismissed with polite indifference. There's a word here, matahara, maternity harassment. It ranges from subtle pressure to resign, to blatant career derailment after pregnancy is announced. And yet, in the world of anime and advertising, women are warriors, commanders of magical realms, business leaders, fighters, heroes. But in daily life, the contradiction is hard to ignore. Cultural expectations still whisper an old narrative. Be gentle, be quiet, support the man, care for the child. And those who stray from this script, they often find themselves isolated, not just professionally, but socially. One woman worked in finance for 9 years. She passed all her exams, spoke 3 languages, managed millions in investments. She married. She returned after maternity leave. Her desk had been moved to the copy room. Her responsibilities erased. When she asked why, the answer was simple. We assumed you wouldn't want the stress anymore. So she left. Not just the job, but the dream. And she wasn't alone. A recent report showed that over 70% of Japanese women quit full-time work after giving birth. Not because they wanted to, but because the system made no space for them to stay. Yet the irony grows sharper. In a society facing record-low birth rates, shrinking populations, and a mounting labor shortage, one of its greatest untapped resources remains: women. Some now push back, quietly at first, voicing dissent in novels, in art, in online forums where real names are hidden but stories are shared. Others are louder, building businesses, creating change from the outside. And slowly something is shifting. The image is cracking, the silence is breaking. But in a culture built on conformity, there's still a cost to standing out. Because in Japan, the moment someone looks or lives differently, everything changes. Number 10, the taboo of being different. In a land where cherry blossoms fall in perfect rhythm, where school children line up in matching uniforms, and streets glisten without litter. Sameness isn't just a preference, it's a rule written in silence. In Japan, harmony is sacred. It is taught from the first classroom bow to the final boardroom farewell, from how one speaks, to how one walks, to how one blends in without leaving a trace. But what happens when someone cannot, or chooses not, to blend in? Walk into a traditional hot spring, an onsen. The waters are still, the air soft with steam, but on the wall above the slippers, a quiet sign awaits. No tattoos allowed, no warning, no explanation. Just refusal. For centuries, tattoos in Japan have carried a heavy weight. Linked historically to the Yakuza, the feared crime syndicates, inked skin is still seen by many as a threat, a rebellion, a mark of the outsider. Even if the tattoo is a butterfly. Even if the wearer is a tourist. Even if the design honors something spiritual or personal. At the door, none of that matters. The message is clear. Different is dangerous. But the lines go deeper than ink. For many foreigners, the difference begins the moment they speak. Accents trigger stares. Skin tones raise eyebrows. Some are complimented for trying to adapt. Others are reminded, again and again, that they never truly will. A black man walks into a bar in Osaka. The hostess smiles until she hears him speak. Then a pause. Then the phrase repeated in whispers across the nation. Sorry, we're full. Even when every seat is empty. It's rarely loud, rarely direct, but it is real. And for Japan's LGBTQ+ community, the walls are more delicate, yet equally solid. There are neighborhoods in Tokyo where rainbow flags flutter under neon lights, bars where people gather without fear. But outside those zones, silence reigns. Same-sex marriage is not recognized nationwide. Coming out can cost a career, a family, a future. Many live two lives, one in public, one in private. Not because they want to lie, but because truth carries consequences. Even within schools and companies, those with disabilities face invisible walls. Wheelchair access exists but is often limited. Mental health conditions are rarely discussed, let alone accommodated, and asking for help is seen by some as burdening the group. So what becomes of those who are different? Some leave, some adapt until the mirror forgets their original shape, and some simply disappear into quiet corners, building small worlds where they can breathe without apology. Because in a society where uniformity is a form of safety, standing out, by choice or by birth, can feel like a quiet exile. To stand out, one woman once said, is to be watched, not celebrated. But Japan is changing, slowly, quietly. Some onsens now welcome tattooed guests. Some companies adopt diversity pledges. Some schools teach that difference is not defiance, but humanity. And yet, for every step forward, there's still a question that lingers in the silence. What happens when machines blend in? Better than humans ever could? Number 11, a nation of vending machines and vanishing people. There is a machine in the middle of a forest. Its light hums through the branches. Its glow flickers softly across moss-covered roots. It stands upright, immaculate, stocked with coffee, soup, and soda. Yet there is no one to drink. No footprints in the soil, no voices in the wind. In Japan, vending machines are more than convenience. They are everywhere. Tucked into side streets, gas stations, hiking trails, mountain passes, school courtyards, even next to rice paddies. One machine for every 23 people. But it isn't the number that shocks, it's where they stand, in places where no home remains. On roads long abandoned, outside shuttered buildings with windows clouded by dust. Always on, always ready. They never ask questions, they never grow tired, they never disappear. Each vending machine is stocked with something simple. Cans of tea, packs of noodles, warm milk in winter. But what they represent is far more complex, because as machines quietly multiply, people quietly vanish. Japan's rural towns, once bustling with farmers, school children, grandparents, neighbors, are emptying. The youth have moved to the cities. The old have passed on. The middle-aged have given up hope of return. Yet the vending machines remain, as if they are placeholders for a population that no longer comes. Silent sentinels of a vanishing way of life. And it isn't just the countryside. Even in Tokyo, where trains rattle day and night, where neon lights chase across skyscrapers, loneliness spreads faster than concrete. In one neighborhood, a vending machine offers hot meals at 3 a.m. Its screen welcomes customers with a cartoon smile. The man who stops to buy a beef bowl doesn't speak. He hasn't spoken to another person in 2 days. Machines do not judge. Machines do not forget orders. Machines never walk away mid-conversation. Across the nation, automation has filled the spaces left by community. Robot waiters serve ramen in city diners. AI receptionists greet guests at capsule hotels. Delivery drones hum past windows in rural villages too remote for human mail. At first, this efficiency was hailed as brilliance. But over time, something strange happened. The more tasks machines took over, the less people seemed to belong. Some began to feel redundant, not just unemployed, but unnecessary, not just unseen, but unfelt. And still, the machines served. In abandoned towns where schools have closed and homes have collapsed, a vending machine hums quietly next to a rusted bench. Fresh drinks inside, no hands to claim them. What does it say about a society where convenience remains, even after community disappears? In a world built on progress, There is one question that echoes louder each year. Can machines replace people without replacing what makes people human? And on the forgotten islands of Japan, that question takes a new form. Because in some places, machines don't stand alone. Instead, they share space with cats, dolls, and silence. Number 12. The Island of Dolls and Cats. There is an island where the streets have no names, because no one is left to walk them. A place where the wind moves through silent windows, and eyes, glass eyes, watch from the shadows of forgotten homes. This is Nagoro in Japan's Iya Valley, a village of less than 30 people and over 350 life-size dolls. They sit at bus stops, in empty classrooms, behind fogged-up shop windows, their faces still, their expressions soft. Some stare straight ahead. Others bow slightly, as if still waiting for someone who never returned. Each doll represents a person who once lived here. A neighbor, a fisherman, a child, all hand-stitched by the village's last resident artist. One for every soul who left or died. The dolls do not speak, but they tell stories no living voice could carry. Stories of a population that aged and vanished. Stories of a place once filled with laughter, trade, arguments, weddings, now filled only with echoes. Even the school bell rings no more. But Nagoro is only one chapter. To the east lies Okunoshima, an island where rabbits roam free. They hop along stone paths. They nibble at visitors' shoelaces. They crowd around bicycles as if offering welcome. At first glance, it feels like magic, but beneath the cuteness lies a history no animal can erase. During World War II, this island held secrets. A poison gas factory, hidden from maps. A place where weapons were made in silence, then erased from memory. Now only the rabbits remain, gentle creatures born from mystery, running through a land once too dangerous to name. And then, further south, there is Aoshima, Cat Island. Here, cats outnumber humans 6-1. They lounge on rooftops. They nap in abandoned boats. They wait at the dock as if expecting old fishermen who never came back. Few people live here now. Most homes are sealed. And yet, the cats remain, as if guarding the ghosts of a forgotten fishing town. Across Japan, these surreal islands share a single story. Life moved on, but something stayed behind. Sometimes it takes the shape of a rabbit, sometimes a doll, sometimes a village of cats watching quietly as the sea keeps rising and the past slips further away. Tourists visit for photos, unaware of what they're stepping into. A doll classroom becomes a quirky Instagram post. A swarm of cats, a cute distraction. But for those who once called these islands home, the images are anything but whimsical. These are monuments to people, not places, to silence, not serenity. Because here, Japan's shrinking population is not just a number. It's a landscape, a face, a vacant window with curtains that haven't moved in a decade. In these towns, no one rings the bell. But the emptiness still answers. And far from the islands, on the mainland, some remain barely hidden in plain sight. Number 13. The hidden homeless of Japan. In the early hours of the morning, Tokyo glows. Trains screech into motion. Office towers light up in perfect grid formation. Vending machines blink with warmth. The city hums like a machine. Flawless, mechanical, impressive. But just beyond the reach of its neon arms lies a reality few ever notice. Not because it hides, but because it's designed to disappear. In the heart of Ueno Park, beneath carefully pruned trees and beside a reflecting pond, blue tarps form quiet rectangles on the soil. Blankets are folded neatly at dawn. Shoes are arranged beside each mat, lined up, facing forward. No mess, no noise, no asking. Some call them homeless, but here that word carries a different shape. These are the men who sweep the park before others wake. The women who rest on benches with carefully brushed hair. The workers who sit at internet cafes overnight, not for games, but for shelter. The elderly who fold cardboard into perfect beds beneath train overpasses, gone by first light. Their shirts are clean, their faces composed. They say nothing, because in a country built on appearances, poverty wears a mask. In Japan, survival does not look like begging. It looks like invisibility. There are those who work full-time but sleep nowhere. Janitors who wash in public restrooms before entering pristine offices. Delivery men who change in 24-hour saunas, then head out to greet customers with a bow. They are called the working homeless. A contradiction in words, yet a reality in numbers. A 2022 report quietly estimated tens of thousands living this way in urban Japan. No permanent address, no postal code, no presence on paper. And for many, it isn't a fall from grace. It's a quiet slide. Rent too high, wages too low, family support gone. But shame makes no noise. At Shinjuku Station, the busiest transport hub in the world, thousands pass through every hour. Above the stairs in a shadowed alcove, a man rests against a wall. He watches the feet move past like a current. He doesn't reach out. He doesn't speak. Only when no one watches does he eat. In Tokyo's 24-hour internet cafes, customers swipe cards and choose cubicles. Some stay for an hour, some for a night, others for months. A screen becomes a wall. A curtain becomes a door. The humming of fans becomes the only lullaby. They pay per night, no contract, no ID needed. Because the cost of a room has outgrown the reach of a full-time job, and yet the rules are followed. Shoes removed, trash collected, space respected. Even poverty here is structured. In Osaka's Nishinari ward, there's a place where men queue for food, heads bowed, hands quiet. Not a word is spoken, not a glance exchanged. Even in suffering, dignity is preserved, because to stand out is to invite shame, and to ask for help is to admit failure. And so many choose silence over sympathy. Under bridges, in capsule hotels, behind curtains of convenience, an entire population lives on the edges of the visible world, hidden not by distance but by design. And yet the city moves on. The skyline stretches higher. Bullet trains speed past empty towns. New malls rise. While beneath the footpaths, someone sleeps with a packed briefcase beside them. Not unemployed, just unaccounted for. In a nation that values order above all, some fates are folded into silence. Because here, to be poor means disappearing quietly. But there are those who don't vanish. They walk away, not from poverty, but from identity itself. No farewell, no explanation, just absence. And they are next. Number 14, Sacred Silence, the lives of Japan's forest monks. The further the train moves from the city, the quieter the world becomes. Skyscrapers flatten into rolling hills. Electric signs give way to fog-shrouded trees. And the chatter of stations is replaced by birdsong and wind. In the farthest folds of the Tohoku Mountains, something ancient still breathes. A narrow path threads through towering cedar forests, thousands of years old, thick with moss and time. Their trunks rise like silent guardians. The air here is colder, not from altitude, but from absence. There are no cars, no screens, no signals. Only the sound of a wooden staff tapping stone steps, and the robes of a man who has chosen to vanish from noise. By choice. He is a Yamabushi, a mountain monk, a practitioner of Shugendo, a spiritual path older than the samurai. Not Buddhist, not Shinto, something older, wilder, rooted in earth, wind, water, and endurance. He walks barefoot across riverbeds in winter. He stands beneath ice-cold waterfalls, motionless, eyes closed. He hikes for hours through fog without saying a word, to cleanse not the body, but the noise inside the mind. In modern Japan, where every second is timed and every corner glows with neon, these monks exist in defiance of pace. Their homes are simple huts built by hand. Tatami mats, a fire pit, no mirror. There is no clock. Meals are for fuel, not pleasure. Each moment is a ritual, washing rice, sweeping ash, bowing to the mountains. Not once, every day. They believe nature is not scenery. It is a teacher. And only when one is silent can one hear it speak. Wind rustles through pine needles like a whisper. A stream cuts across smooth stones, singing its way downhill. A bell rings once, echoing through the valley. No one answers, because the answer has already come. The world rushes to find peace. They stop to meet it. Visitors who make the pilgrimage here are required to leave all devices behind, not as a punishment, but as a portal. On the fifth day of one retreat, silence begins to feel like language. The forest no longer feels empty, it feels alive. Every footstep is heard, every breath honored, and every distraction gone. Some of these monks have lived off-grid for decades. No bank account, no ID, no social media. They write letters with brush and ink. They grow their own food. They know the taste of silence and the weight of stillness. In a culture often praised for efficiency, here is a choice made for slowness. Here is peace not sold, but practiced. Not taught, but endured. And yet it is not a romantic escape. It is a path of pain, discipline, and surrender. To walk into the forest is not to flee, but to face. One Yamabushi once said, "When you stop needing anything, you begin to understand everything." He said no more, because there was nothing else to add. In the cedar woods of Dewa Sanzan, silence becomes sacred, and those who seek truth come not to speak, but to listen. But not everyone walks into the forest to find peace. Some walk into the dark and never return. And for them, the disappearance is not spiritual. It's something far more final. The next chapter doesn't begin with peace. It begins with absence. Number 15, the art of disappearing, Juhatsu. Every morning in Japan, trains glide into stations with clockwork precision. Millions file into offices, bow, type, nod, and repeat. The streets remain clean, the silence orderly, the routine untouched. But somewhere in the pattern, someone slips away. Not loudly, not with a note, not even with a suitcase. They simply vanish. This is not an accident. It is a choice. And in Japan, it has a name. Juhatsu, evaporation. More than 100,000 people disappear each year. Not kidnapped, not lost, but erased by their own will. Some leave debts, some leave shame, others leave the weight of expectation. And they don't just move cities, they erase identities. Bank accounts are abandoned. Health records go untouched. Phones are left behind or destroyed. It's not just running away, it's starting over as a ghost. Private agencies known as night movers help orchestrate these vanishings. They arrive at midnight, they pack silently. By dawn, the person is gone. No trace, no forwarding address. These agencies operate legally, quietly, and business is steady. Landlords discover rent unpaid, with rooms left untouched. Neighbors describe them as polite, reserved, and then simply gone. Some are found sleeping in 24-hour internet cafes. Others take up low-wage jobs under fake names. Factories, truck stops, remote fishing villages. They become part of the unseen city, a parallel world living beside the one that forgot them. And yet no police report is filed. In Japan, adults are not required to report their location. To leave is not a crime. One man was last seen walking out of his company headquarters after being reprimanded for a minor accounting error. He didn't go home, he didn't call, he didn't even collect his final paycheck. 15 years have passed. His family kept a light on for 3 of them. Then they stopped asking. What forces someone to vanish in a country built on connection, on duty, on appearances? Perhaps it is those very things. In a culture where failure equals shame and shame equals isolation, disappearing can feel like the last thread of control. A former salaryman once said in a whisper, "Losing face is worse than losing a life." So I left my name behind. In the forested outskirts of Tokyo, in a rusted one-room apartment, he now repairs bicycles. No one asks his real name. No one offers pity. And that's the way he wants it. Japan is known for its safety, its order, its harmony. But under the surface lies a quiet truth, that here it's easier to vanish than to fail. But what happens when disappearance becomes a way of life? When silence replaces help and invisibility replaces healing? Because just beyond the world of the disappeared, there's another world, still hidden, where everything that vanishes leaves something behind. And in that quiet space between seen and unseen, one final question waits to be answered. Every question that lingers, Every silence that stretched through the shadows of this journey finds its echo here, not in answers, but in understanding. Because what vanishes in Japan doesn't disappear entirely. It leaves behind an imprint, a quiet mark on the atmosphere, a shadow on the beauty. It waits beneath the stillness of a Zen garden, behind the curtain of a bustling Shibuya crossing, inside a ramen shop where a man eats in silence while 1,000 souls brush past him. The lesson was never about disappearing. It was about what remains when no one is watching. Harmony and isolation are not opposites here. They are neighbors. They exist side by side like shoji screens, filtering in both light and shadow. A country that writes poetry on falling leaves also measures pain in silence, where beauty is curated so perfectly, petal by petal, brushstroke by brushstroke. The sadness is never loud, but it is always there, a vending machine on a cliff, a love note tucked into a crack at the base of Mount Fuji, a job title carried like armor by a man who hasn't smiled in weeks. Japan didn't break the expectations the world had built. It quietly unraveled them, like origami pulled apart, layer by layer, until only the paper remains. This is a place where the most fragile things are treated as sacred. A teacup with a golden scar, a cherry blossom caught in a breeze, a bowed head after failure. And perhaps that's the truth that was waiting all along, that even in a culture shaped by precision, it is the cracks that carry the story. That perfection isn't the absence of flaw, but the reverence for it. That silence isn't always peace, but sometimes pain with no words. That to disappear is sometimes the only way to be seen. In the falling of the cherry blossoms, something becomes clear. They don't mourn the fall, they celebrate it. Because even endings can be beautiful. Even vanishings can carry grace. As the lanterns rise into the night sky, as laughter echoes faintly behind closed classroom doors, as a monk walks barefoot through a cedar path no map records, the question remains, what else lies behind the places we think we understand? Because Japan wasn't just a destination, it was a mirror, held up gently, asking the world, do you really see what you're looking at? The crossing pulses again. Neon reflected in rain-soaked asphalt. Thousands move in practiced rhythm, each step synchronized, each pause calibrated. But now something feels different. Not in the lights, but in the silence between them. They say Japan is the land of order, but now it feels less like choreography and more like camouflage. A nation not hiding from the world, but quietly protecting the parts it never says aloud. A bowed head could be courtesy or a burden. A quiet room could be peace or a cage. What once seemed like perfect precision now reveals layers of compromise, survival, ritual. Behind the efficiency, the elegance, the etiquette, there is something ancient, raw, human, not broken, but aching. And suddenly that famous crossing becomes more than just a street. It becomes a metaphor, a place where people appear together, but rarely meet, where thousands brush shoulders, but carry stories no one ever hears. So ask this, what would you find here? Not in the glow of lanterns, not in the curve of a temple gate, not in the bullet train's flawless timing, but in the quiet, in the moments Japan doesn't perform for the world. Would you recognize the truth if it whispered, not shouted? Would you listen to the country beneath the image? Because sometimes the loudest message is the one never spoken at all. If this journey shifted how you see the world, share it. Let the truth travel farther than we ever could. Because beauty without understanding is only half the story. And silence, too, deserves to be heard. Ask yourself, what other stories are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to see them? Because every place has secrets, but only the curious ever find them, and only the brave ever look again.